Okay, great. Okay, cool. So I'm Biz, and I am a UX manager at Shopify. And today we're going to talk about user experience, which we call UX. So I'll just give you a bit of background about myself before we jump into it. I've worked at Shopify for about 5 years in UX. And before that, I worked for the Canadian government. I'm from Ottawa in Canada. And I used to work on Canada.ca, which is Canada's big website. So these are just some pictures of me and my team when we were skating in the winter, because we skate a lot in Ottawa. And after we celebrated like a launch, working together, that kind of stuff. So we're going to chat about designing experiences on the internet. So when we talk about UX, there's like lots and lots of different things that we could talk about. So is everybody familiar with Netflix and seen this before? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, lots of that, I'm sure
Yep.
lately. There's a whole team of people behind Netflix who design all of these different experiences for you. So there's people who design like the apps that go on the TVs. There's people who design and build the app on your phone or on your tablet. They pick like what words go on the buttons, what the menus say, like all the different stuff within those, within all the different screens, what pictures show up, all that kind of stuff.
You can watch all my podcasts on it if you want.
Does anybody know what app this is from?
TikTok.
Yeah, TikTok. So just like Netflix, there's also a whole team of people behind TikTok who decide, that there should be little icons along the bottom, what all those icons do, which ones are you going to actually understand? Like if you click that plus icon, are people going to know what that plus means? Are they going to know how to upload videos? What are the steps that they're going to have to follow? If you click the little heart, what happens? Does it kind of like shake a little bit? Does it fill in with a different color? So there's all sorts of people who think about all these different tiny little decisions, and that is the job of people in UX. So I work for Shopify, which is like a software company that helps people who want to start businesses. So if you have something that you want to sell and you want to maybe create a store online, you could go to Shopify and then you could start a store, and you could add products, and you could say how much they're going to cost and all that kind of stuff. So this would be kind of like the software that you would use to manage and run your business. So pretty much everything on the internet was designed and created by somebody, or teams of people, or one person. So some of them are more thoughtful than others. So we'll kind of chat about what that process looks like and the different kind of jobs within user experience. So there's lots of different jobs. There are people called designers, there are researchers, content strategists, front-end developers, illustrators. So you could kind of have one person who maybe does all of these, who like dabbles in all these different areas, or you could have specialized people who just kind of like focus in on one thing. So they could be designing the screens. They could be maybe thinking about what words are displayed on the screens and writing all the different content that you might see, or like what goes on a button. They might be actually building those experiences. So when you click something, it actually clicks it and it goes to the next thing. They could be doing illustrations that help you understand different parts of experiences. But we'll get into that as we keep going. Also, if you have any questions, just feel free to jump in at any time. Like we can, I want to make sure everybody understands as I'm going through. Cool. So let's talk a little bit about the process of what it might look like if you are working in UX and you're trying to build something. So these are kind of the 4 main steps that a project, if you are on a project, could follow. So you could start with an idea of something that you want to build. So it could be like an app or a website or a feature within software. And then you could go and then you could start exploring how you might solve that problem. and then you would build the thing, and then you would launch it to whoever you're building something for. So we're going to dive into each of these different steps and kind of talk a little bit more about that. Okay, so let's jump into the idea. So what's really important during the idea phase is to understand the problem or the opportunity. So what's the problem that your idea solves? So does anybody know what this app is?
Yes.
Uber.
That is Uber Eats.
Uber Eats.
Uber, yeah, you're right. What problem do you think that Uber, before it even existed, when they were like just thinking of it as an idea, what problem do you think they were trying to solve?
How would they get a map?
Yeah? Like showing a map of where some cars are? Anybody else have any ideas?
It would solve the problem of having to wait for taxis.
Yeah, having to
Where
wait for
would they-
taxis.
You could watch your car guy.
Yeah, you can see where your driver is. You
Where
could
would
watch
they
it.
put the GPS in your car?
Yeah, understanding like exactly where they are. Yeah, those are all awesome. So like you all already said, the problems that they were hoping to solve were, helping somebody get a car to take them somewhere. So like a taxi kind of, making it really easy to see where your driver is. So maybe before, when you would call a taxi on the phone, they would say like, oh yeah, it'll be there in half an hour, but you wouldn't actually know, are they actually coming in half an hour? Are they going to be late? I don't know where they are. So this way it would make it really easy for you to get ready and get your coat on and wait by the door if you knew exactly when they were coming. The other problem that it helps with was seeing how much it costs. So say you were going to take a taxi to the store, you might not know exactly how much it's going to cost you. So is it going to be $5 or is it going to be $25? Because maybe you don't want to take the taxi if it's going to be $25. So those are some of the problems that it helped solve. So maybe those are the problems that they were thinking about when they were in their idea phase of the project. So at Shopify, we help people. The problem that we're trying to solve is helping people start and manage businesses. So if you had an idea for something that you wanted to sell, Shopify wants to make that easy for you to be able to sell that thing and set up your store and all that fun stuff. So during the idea phase, if you have an idea for a product or a feature or an app that would help people, that's when you kind of start thinking about it. You want to do lots and lots of research to understand the problem you want to solve. It's probably the most important thing during this phase is to really understand what's the problem people are having and how might my idea help them. And then you want to talk to people who might use your app. So say you wanted to design an app that would help people submit their homework virtually. You'd want to talk to a bunch of students and get them to tell you what kind of features they might need. Maybe you'd want to talk to some teachers to see what type of features they would need, to be able to approve the homework or grade it. And you want to try to use data if it's possible. So getting any data depending on what problem you're looking at, but how many people might want to use your product or that kind of thing. Okay, so yeah, the idea phase. So here's an example of a problem that we might have. So people need to create logos for their businesses. So say you have a business and you're really excited and your idea is really great and you know the people need it, but now you need to create a logo and you're not really sure how to do it. So that's your problem that maybe we could help solve. So now that we have a good problem that we've thought of and maybe we've done some research during the idea phase, now we can start to move into the explore phase. So here's where we get to start, exploring different solutions for how to help people and how to solve this problem. So when we're in the explore phase, that's when you kind of start to get into the design process a bit more. So there's kind of three main stages of the design process. There's sketching, and then after you've kind of done some sketching, then you might move to wireframes and low fidelity mockups, and then you might move to high fidelity mockups. So I'm going to explain and show examples of all these different things, but this is kind of the three kind of main stages that you'll go through depending on what you're working on. So sketching. kind of like it sounds. It's not on a computer. It's just on paper with pens or markers. And so if we think back to our problem, we wanted to help people create a logo for their business. So you want to think about all different people and different types of logos that they might need, maybe different types of businesses. Maybe you get together with your team in a group and you would all start just sketching out your ideas. What are lots of different ways we could solve this problem? So one way that we could solve it maybe is to create a website that has a logo builder or like a logo generator. So when we start thinking about that, okay, what might we need here? We might need to have a web page, and maybe it has to have a button over here. So maybe it'll have some text at the top that tells people, you can create beautiful logos in seconds. And then there's a button that says, create my logo, and they click it, and then they go to the next step. So at this stage, we're kind of like being able to move quickly and generate lots of different ideas of how to solve this problem. Maybe somebody else wants to create an app to solve this. There's lots of different ways you could solve it. And then the next sketch, maybe we want to start sketching, okay, what would happen after they click that create my logo button? Maybe then they're brought to another step that says, what type of businesses do you have? And then they have like lots of different options. And this could help us generate a logo that's more tailored to their field. So at this stage, you're doing, you're working through lots of ideas. You're working with your whole team, hopefully. So you want to involve lots of different people, so you get lots of different ideas because everybody thinks differently. So it's important to have lots of different perspectives when you're thinking about how to solve your problem. So yeah, you want to get lots of feedback from your peers. So this is just a picture of actually my team at work. So we're showing something that we're thinking through on the screen, and then everybody else is giving lots of ideas, lots of feedback on what we're working through. So some of the types of feedback that people might have for you, they might ask you questions like, how do you know what categories to put here? Like, how do you know that it should be fashion and food and home and tech? Like, how do you know that those are the top businesses? So then maybe that question would make me go and do some more research and say like, actually, I don't know if people need logos for their pet stores. So then I would go and do more research. Maybe I would do more interviews with people and figure that out. And as you go through each kind of stage, people give you more feedback and they ask you more questions, which kind of makes you think about everything more holistically. Does that make sense so far?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Another thing that you can do during this phase is what we call a journey map. So this is when you try to put yourself into your customer's shoes. So if you're the person who's designing this logo creator tool, what would a business owner be doing as they kind of use this tool? So maybe that business owner is going to start by Googling free logo maker. That's how they're trying to find different tools out there on the internet to make a logo. Then they might see your website in the search results. So then they might click on your website. When they get to your website, maybe then they have to kind of tell you what type of business they have, like we saw in our earlier sketches. So maybe they say like, I have a pet store, so I need to have my pet store online now. That's what they're trying to do. And then maybe they pick a visual style for the logo, saying like, I want it to be professional, but also modern. Maybe then they have to tell you their business's name so that you can kind of start to, behind the scenes, generate like a logo that goes with their name. Maybe then there's a step where they choose a logo that they like out of a bunch of pre-generated logos. Then they could edit their logo, and then finally they could download the logo and then use it wherever they need to, like on their website or on their social media. So this part is just really about trying to understand like all the steps in the journey that your customer or your user, whoever's using your tool or product, is going to go through. Of course, it could be like much bigger and much more complicated than this. But yeah, you can, whatever problem you're solving, you can map it out. Okay, so we're kind of going to zoom ahead a little bit to the next phase, which is after you've done some sketching and some research and you really understand your problem, now you could move to wireframes and low fidelity mockups. So this is, this kind of looks like maybe like this. You can tell that it's a website with some buttons and some pictures and there's text there. So like you can see what's going on here, but obviously this isn't what it's actually going to look like once we launch the real website. This is just like, this is like the computer version of a sketch. So this makes it easy to get feedback from everybody. And at this stage, you're probably going to be doing lots and lots of different wireframes for every stage of something. So, what happens when they actually click that Get Started button? Then they see a different page. What does that page look like? So you're actually going to kind of mock up all those different pages. Think about like all the different pieces within that journey. So another thing you might want to do during this stage, after you've got some wireframes, is do some what's called usability testing with your users or your customers, the people who are going to actually use your tool. So if we were making this free logo creator tool, we would probably want to get some business owners to come and test this out to see if this would be something that they would use. So you could show them all the different things that you've mocked up, so all those wireframes, and you would have them kind of pretend like they were going to click through it, or maybe you've actually kind of like prototyped and like built out some of it. So you could have them kind of test and click through. And what you're looking for at this stage is probably things like, are they confused at a certain step? Do they not know what the button does? Say you had a button that said, click here. Maybe they don't know what that means. Maybe you need a button that's clearer that says create logo. So they actually know what's going to happen when they click it. So here you're looking for anywhere that they're struggling to understand what's happening. Maybe they are worried that something is, that the tool is going to cost them money. Like they think you're going to charge them $10 at the end. So maybe you actually have to make that clear up front and say, this is a free logo generator, so that they aren't worried that you're going to charge them. So you're kind of going to do testing at this point, and then you're going to make edits to any of your wireframes or mocks based off of the feedback that you get from your users. So after you've kind of done that, we're kind of zooming through the stages here. Usually this would probably take like, weeks or months, depending on how big the project was. But then after you've kind of got a good sense of all the screens that you kind of want to build and the flow that people are going to be going through, then you can jump into high fidelity mockups. So when we say high fidelity mockups, we mean more like the things that are really close to what your website's actually gonna look like. So for example, if you were creating this logo tool, your website might look like this. So it's obviously a bit fancier than the wireframe that we had earlier, but it's pretty similar. So you can kind of, based off of the wireframes, you could kind of guess what it might look like, maybe. And then you're going to want to mock up all the different screens in your experience. So maybe the top one there is the first screen, and then after they click that Get Started button, it brings them to the screen that says, choose your business space. This helps us create better designs. So they pick that they're in food and drink. They maybe have a restaurant. Then there's a step that says, choose your visual style. And so they could choose, like, I want something that's bold and creative. And then maybe is the step where we actually generate a bunch of different logos for them. So basically you'd probably have like, I don't know, you could have a lot more screens than this, but I just put 4 to kind of illustrate that you're, as the designer or as the user experience person, this is your job to like design all these different screens and think through all the different things that are going to appear. So everything from, the title at the top of the page. So, like create stunning logos in seconds. Somebody had to write that. To what the button says and what the categories are. So after you've been through the explore phase and you've mocked up all those different things, then you move towards build. So some of your you could still be exploring some things as people start building it. So it kind of depends how big your team is. But this is the stage where you're going to actually build all the stuff that you have explored. So this is where you could work with developers. So developers, maybe you even do some development yourself. Like you don't have to only have developers who do things and UX people who do things. Sometimes there's a crossover. Hopefully you've been working with your team throughout the whole process. So even when you were sketching, you probably involved some of your researchers, you involved some developers so that you got everybody's ideas about things. And they could tell you too, like, oh, that's going to be like easier to build, or oh, that feature that you want to have is going to be super hard to build and it's going to take us like a month to build it. So maybe you decide, okay, we're not going to have the super complicated feature. We're going to do something that's like a compromise in the middle. So this is when you work with the developers to build all the different screens that you've designed. At this stage, people in UX are thinking about things like error messages. So what are all the different errors that people could come across as they're going through your tool or your feature or your app? So maybe when they're signing in to your app, they put their email address, but they typed it wrong. So what's the error message that's going to pop up and say, like, you have to retry or retype your email address? What does that exactly say? Somebody has to write that. You want to think about all the things that could go wrong in the experience. So say if we were designing like a homework app for you to upload different homework to, what happens if somebody has a problem uploading a picture of their homework? How are they going to like get past that problem? Is there going to be a little error message that pops up and says, you know, you need to retry uploading the picture? So you want to think through all those little like possibilities of what could happen to somebody who's using the new tool that you're building. And then you probably want to do some more testing with your users too. So once you have something built, you can get somebody, say you want to build the logo generator tool. You could have business owners come in and actually click through everything like in the real world that's working on their computer and see if they understand everything. You could try to think through like, what are some areas I could make it clearer? Maybe I can have a clearer description on something so that they know exactly what that button does because they were not really sure before. So after you've done that, now you kind of want to make sure everything's ready to go. So this is kind of like the review step. So this is actually some of my team in our, what we call a pod, but like basically our office with all our desks and computers. So we kind of usually just gather around somebody's desk and review everything, or now we do it all virtually, obviously, kind of like this, where we'll show our screens and everybody will, you know, jump in and give us feedback. At this stage, we kind of want to review everything and make sure it's all as we designed it and as we expected. There's no missing steps or there's no weird bugs that happen, or like the content is, you know, wrong, or maybe the spacing is off. And so then we, you know, write that down and then we want to fix that after before we actually launch that thing and let real people use it in the real world. So yeah, after we've built everything and reviewed it, then we get to the last stage of the project, which is the launch phase. So this is when we're actually going to launch something. We actually use the word ship it. So we say we're going to ship something, kind of like a tech word, and we will ship the new feature to people, which is, we'll often use like a rocket emoji or something like that, or the ship emoji to say like, it's good to go, ship it, we're ready. So after we launch something to the real world, things that we do after that are collecting data to see if what we launched is successful. So for example, are people actually using that logo maker that we created? Do they like it? Can they understand it? How many people are using it? Are thousands of people using it, or just 10 people using it? So we can use data to see that kind of thing. We can see like, are they going through some of the steps, but then they don't actually end up downloading the logo? So then maybe that'll tell us something's confusing in the middle, or it's not what they expected. And then we can maybe make some changes to it too. So at this point, we also want to be collecting feedback from our users. So sometimes, I don't know if you've gotten like a survey or a pop-up that says, would you mind giving us feedback on something? Oftentimes software will do that and it'll ask people for feedback, and then hopefully given whatever people answer, then they'll make changes to whatever the experience is. So, you know, Netflix might ask you how you like their app, or they might look at the reviews that are left in the App Store. And if people are kind of complaining about something that's wrong, or, you know, they're saying like, oh, I can't load this TV show that I really want to see, and it just keeps like glitching out on me and I can't load it, then their team and their UX people and their developers will dig into that and say like, okay, why isn't it loading? How can we fix this? So we look at feedback and then we try to fix whatever's wrong. And then we learn from all of the things. So all the things that people tell us, the users tell us, what the data tells us, and then we make updates to whatever the tools are, the app, and improve it. So this is when you basically start the cycle all over again, and you go back into kind of idea or explore like how you're going to solve the new problem that has come up. And then you kind of start all over again with sketching and wireframing, and doing that whole process of getting feedback of how you're going to improve something. Yeah, so I just wanted to go into a quick example. So this tool, it wasn't actually built by my team, but it's a real tool to build logos. So this is kind of what the final product ended up like. So they probably would have started with sketching and then done some wireframes and gotten feedback like we chatted about. And then this is what they actually ended up building. So here, here's the kind of the homepage of the website, and then there's a button here to get started. There's some examples of different logos down here to give people ideas. So somebody would have had to decide like, okay, we're gonna put a bunch of different logos here to give people different ideas. They would have had to design all these different logos to give people ideas of what logos they could have for their businesses. So if you click the Get Started button, then there's another page here. So this is the page where you choose your business space. So we had kind of sketched out some of this stuff earlier and saw this in some of the wireframes. So maybe I say, okay, mine is a pet business, and then I could say next, and then it asks us to choose our visual style. So maybe we want it to be creative and bold and modern. But yeah, somebody had to, decide what are all these different categories? What are all these different styles people might want? What are the images that are going to be with the bold one to make somebody think like, oh yeah, that's bold. And then, like when you click on one of them, it actually has this little purple box that goes around it. So that's a different piece of the experience. So pretty much all these different elements are things that people thought through of how to make this a better experience for people. Even at the top here, there's like a progress bar, which kind of helps you as the person who's going through this flow, trying to create your logo, understand like how much more do I have to go? Like how hard is this going to be? I can see I'm kind of like a third of the way through here. If I click next, then it asks me for my business name. So let's just say our name is Pete's Pet Shop, and then it's going to help us auto-generate a logo with that name in it. It's asking us where we're going to use our logo. So maybe we're going to use it on our online store and maybe also social media. Like we want to have it on our Twitter and Instagram profiles. And then it auto-generates a bunch of different logos. So then the person can kind of go through it. It's pretty easy to follow. So somebody's kind of designed this in a way that it goes step by step by step so that it's easy for the person to follow, and they can really make a logo very, very quickly. So we can go through this, like, I don't know, which one do we like here? Maybe it's more of like a dog and cat one. So maybe we'll pick the one with the dog. And then there's an edit step. So you can look here on the side and see different fonts. So maybe you don't like this font and you want to change it to something like that. Maybe you want to change it to a different color. Like you don't like the yellow. You want it to be more brighter, maybe blue. And then there's different icon sections. So you could actually, change it to see what different icons are going to look like. So all these different things like on the screen that you go through would have been pieces that you would kind of have, as a UX person, be mocking up and deciding like, okay, you see this long list that says all icons. What are the categories going to be in here? That's going to make it easy for someone to pick. So animals, okay, that's a good category for me because we have a pet store. There's lots of different animals to choose from. So it gives lots of variety to people. So maybe we pick the paw print because that's more generic. So it applies to like dogs and cats. Different layouts we could pick. So yeah, lets people customize it. And then we're at the end, so we can download the logo. So this is kind of just an example of something that you could build and how you would kind of go through the process to build that. Right. So we're kind of nearing the end of me talking and telling you all about this stuff. So these are just some pictures of my team and the people that I get to work with. So I work with lots of different people across lots of different disciplines. So being in UX and thinking about the experience, you want to work with lots of different people and get lots of ideas. So everybody from developers to other designers, content strategists, people who work in maybe customer support. So they might be people who talk to customers often. So you want to be always working with lots of people. So it kind of reminds me like when you're back in school and you're doing group projects, it's kind of like that, but you are on a team at work. So yeah, I really love working in UX. Like, I think it's one of the best jobs that you could have. The best things about it are like being able to make things easy to use for other people on the internet. So, when you're using Netflix or Uber or those kind of things, we get to be the people who help make those really easy for people to understand, and it helps people with problems that they might have. So, at Shopify, helping people get their businesses online or sell things to people, like especially now as maybe lots of smaller stores are trying to get everything online that might not have been online before. Being able to help people and solve their problems is really awesome. And that's it. So now we can jump into all the questions that you might have.
I have a question.
Sure. I think it's,
So
I have a question.
Oh,
How do you use user experience in better video games?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't actually design video games, but there are whole teams of people who also design video games. Okay, I'll keep going. Yeah, so video game design, I don't do video game design, but I think you'd have a bunch of different roles in there as well. So definitely more animation and illustration, 3D design. It's probably closer to actually like people who make, probably a lot of crossover between people who make actually movies, like animated movies. Yeah, actually Shopify has a VR team, so they do virtual reality stuff. And there are a whole set of people in there who design virtual reality experiences. So when you get headsets on, different things, you have to think about different things like hand gestures, what do menus look like when you're wearing a headset and you're actually touching the menu with your hands. Yeah, so video games have a whole different set of, you could probably do like a whole session on video game design. That would be pretty cool. Do you have another question?
What is the role of fonts?
Fonts?
Yes.
So yeah, there's tons of different fonts out there. Typography is probably like a whole like section on its own to dig into. My background is in content strategy, so I'm probably not the expert on fonts, but fonts can definitely play a role in kind of how you feel when you look at something. So if you see a really big, bold font, that probably evokes different emotions in somebody versus like a softer, narrower font. When we think about fonts too, you want to think about stuff that's easy to read. So is everybody going to be able to read it? Or you want to think about things too, like maybe like legibility of it. If it's really skinny and small, like does it make something really hard to read? Yeah, there's like a whole different sections too around like aspects of visual design. Like you could design posters. And then maybe you want to have different styles of fonts to kind of, if you were a rock band, you would have a different style of a font than maybe if you were like a bake sale poster. So yeah, font can definitely make people feel different things. In with color and with illustration as well, and helps people kind of communicate their ideas and communicate the information that they're trying to get across. Does that make sense? Cool. Does anybody else have other questions?
Yes, it makes sense.
Nice.
I have a question.
Sure.
What happens if someone realizes there's a problem in the thing you launched? Do you make an updated version? Do you unlaunch it? What do you do?
That's a great question. Actually, there's a couple different ways you could do that. So that actually happens all the time. So one of the things that you want to think about is how big is the problem? So how many people are affected by it? So if it's just a little problem and it's like maybe the wrong content, the wrong words are on the screen, that one you probably wouldn't like take it down. You would probably just quickly try to update those words. If it was something that maybe makes your website crash or makes your app crash, you want to probably like fix that really, really fast. So actually we have developers who are on call, like kind of like doctors actually, who are on call like all throughout the night. So if something goes down that's really important and critical, they have all these kind of alarm systems in place that will call them on their phone and wake them up. And then they have to go onto the computer and troubleshoot it and try to figure out, okay, what went wrong? How can I fix this? And they try to fix it as quickly as they can. Yeah, sometimes too, like when we're, so what things that I'm working on, if the software kind of already exists, so you're just making an update to something and it goes wrong, what you can do is roll that update back. So you like launch it and then you unlaunch it, and then you can fix whatever's wrong and then relaunch it. So it kind of just depends, like how many people are affected, how bad is it? Is it like blocking people from doing whatever they're trying to do? Or is it just like a nice, like it should be fixed because it's like kind of, you know, not as ideal as it could be. Does that make sense?
Yes. Thank you.
Sure. Does anybody else have other questions?
If nobody else has any other questions, thank you so much. I'm sure you're super busy these days. So thank you so much for taking some time today to come and talk to us. This was super awesome.
Yeah, it was really fun. Yeah, if you have any questions that you think of in the future too, I don't know if people have Twitter or not, or what the things are there, but also feel free to email me or message me on Twitter. I'm always happy to answer questions, or if you're interested in different aspects of things, maybe I can try to find different resources and give you those. There's lots of awesome info out there on the internet about all these different fields. So if